She did not run a great campaign, and you're going to keep losing if you insist that she ran a great campaign.
I'm saying, there was no model for the campaign that she had.
Donna Brazile is losing it. She still can't seem to process the election loss. Probably stuck in full-blown denial, but you know he has zero patience for people who bend reality to fit their narratives. So when Donna tried her usual spin, he obliterated her hypocrisy and
the big issue, right? Was immigration. And
inflation, immigration.
Those two are very big issues. And you asked Vice President Harris, why did you let all these people in for the last 4 years? She did not have an answer. I still don't know the answer. They actually could, with an executive order, shut it down as they did earlier this year. So why did they not do it 3 years earlier? And I think people felt she did not respond to that in any way. She had no answer on inflation, and she also seemed to represent that whole woke zone that people are sick to death of. And I think those three did it.
I agree with the first two, but I'm not going to get into this, oh, the people are too damn woke. That wasn't an issue.
Trust me, it was brutal. There's a lot to break down here, so let's not waste time. Let's dive in. Donna, it was a big issue whether you want to admit it or not. People were exhausted from the endless woke messaging, the alphabet soup of genders, kids being pushed into transitioning without parental consent, biological men bulldozing their way into women's sports. The list never ended. It was like we were all trapped under the weight of the woke brigade force-fed their propaganda while they called us bigots for daring to question it. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, she barely mentioned the actual crises that mattered to everyday Americans: inflation, silence, border chaos, crickets. Instead, it was all about equity and live.
I disagree with you.
I know, and that's why you're going to keep losing.
No, man, look.
I mean, it's not to go. Okay. But not to go.
On July 21st at 1:41 p.m., when Joe Biden announced that he was not going to, he was going to step down, Kamala Harris had to step up. Now, what other Democrat could have stepped up in that period of time?
We're not arguing about that.
All right.
We're arguing the campaign she ran. They asked her what she would do differently. She said, I can't think of anything. That's terrible.
How do we trust a party that was telling us with a straight face that Joe Biden could be president for 4 more years without any problem whatsoever? That's what the Democrats were telling us. It was a massive lie. We saw through it. Everyone saw through it.
Did you see him this week? Could you imagine if we were just starting on the next term?
Experiences news flash. No one cares about your pronouns when they can't afford groceries. The people noticed and they made sure their voices were heard. So do you now understand when I say Donna is losing it? Well, Bill Maher sees it that way too. Another major reason the Democrats lost, and Bill Maher nailed this point perfectly, was the non-stop lying from the White House. It was painfully obvious that Joe Biden was not fit to lead the most powerful nation on earth. The man has literally wandered off in the middle of speeches, shaken hands with invisible people, and needed cue cards to remind him to sit down. And yet people like Donna Brazile kept gaslighting us, insisting he could handle another term and his backup. Even worse, Kamala Harris had no plan, no vision, and when asked what she'd do different if given the chance to lead, she fumbled, dodged, and delivered another one of her infamous word salad monologues. No wonder voters saw right through the ACT. Kamala Harris wasn't just unprepared, she was painfully out of her depth. Every time she spoke, it was like watching a high schooler trying to BS their way through an oral exam. She'd laugh awkwardly, ramble in circles, and somehow say absolutely nothing in a full minute of talking. And let's not forget her infamous time.
The work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles. Well, let's start with this. On this subject, the aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And I think that is the most recent example of why what we do to assist in their defense around military aid is important. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is without any question our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire.
Is a passing of time. Moments that left everyone wondering how she even made it this far. If this was the Democratic backup plan, no wonder voters ran for the hills, because their message resonated with no one. And the saddest part of all this is that the media, the supposed watchdogs, were in on all the charade. They buried stories and edited interviews to make Kamala Harris look good. Now let me play you this clip of a recently leaked interview of Kamala Harris on CBS's 90 Minutes, where the then vice president performed so poorly that they had to edit some parts out to save her campaign. Watch what made it to air and what Kamo really said. Now, if you actually understood what Kamala Harris just said in the unedited version, please enlighten me in the comments, because I'm completely lost. Seriously, was that even English? But you see my point. CBS had to edit her answer just to make it sound halfway coherent. They literally...
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end. The work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Cut out the embarrassing rambling and stitch together the least ridiculous parts, hoping no one would notice. And this is who the woke mob was trying to force on us, a VP who needs a professional editing team just to sound competent. They told us she was a historic leader, a brilliant mind, but the second you remove the media safety net, it's nothing but word salads and nervous laughter. No wonder the American people weren't buying it. It's almost like they thought we wouldn't notice, but no amount of editing can hide the fact that Kamala Harris struggles to form a single coherent thought under pressure. Imagine needing an entire PR team just to answer basic questions. How is that leadership? The media propped her up. The woke crowd demanded we praise her. But when it came time to actually lead, she fell flat on her face. Now, if you think what you've just watched is a fluke, here's another shocker from former Vice President Kamala Harris. Honestly, it's almost...
From CBS's perspective, Jack, they clearly made a calculus over here, and I'm not sure it was fully thought through or it's coming to fruition the way they thought, because I don't think they actually changed anybody's minds in terms of the coherence or succinctness of Kamala Harris as a communicator. She had been well established as somebody who was prone to rambling. This term word salad has become a phrase that everybody's familiar with her.
Most impressive how Donna Brazile can blame the election loss on everything except Kamala Harris. For crying out loud, Harris was vice president for 4 whole years, and yet she still sounded completely clueless when asked about U.S. foreign policy toward Israel. That wasn't a trick question, that wasn't a gotcha moment. It was basic fundamental knowledge she should have mastered by now. And yet what did we get? Another rambling, incoherent answer that left everyone wondering if she even knew what she was talking about. This is exactly why they lost. Biden had lost touch with reality, and his so-called successor had no idea what she was doing. The American people saw the disaster unfolding in real time and said No thanks, but instead of admitting their mistakes, the Democrats doubled down.
Was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true.
Pretending everything was fine, they gaslit the public, insisting Harris was a strong leader when she couldn't even string together a competent response. Voters weren't fooled. They saw the incompetence, the lack of direction, and the sheer embarrassment of it all, and when election day came, they made it clear America wasn't signing up for 4 more years of this circus. As we mentioned earlier, the media played a massive role in this deception, desperately trying to force Kamala Harris onto the American people. But guess what? It didn't work. No amount of media spin could convince voters that she was competent when every unedited clip told a different story. But instead of holding her accountable, they covered for her, edited her gap, and acted like everything was fine. The problem: voters saw through the charade. No amount of media manipulation could hide the fact that Harris was unprepared, uninspiring, and completely out of her depth, and the election results proved it. And that is exactly what Bill Maher meant when he warned Donna Brazile. Whitewashing Kamala Harris is a losing strategy. If the Democrats refuse to face reality, they'll keep.
The woman the media tried to tell us was a competent and visionary leader, an orator. Yes, it's Kamala time.
For those rights to be maintained, which means we have to be vigilant, and it's just the nature of it.
Oh, I'm not sure if that's Kamala time or happy hour. The former Veep appears to be unburdened by sobriety.
475 words. Another also added, if the Democrats want any chance of winning the next election, they need to do some serious house cleaning, and fast. That means taking a hard look at their failed policies, their out of touch messaging, and yes, their leadership. If that house cleaning includes replacing Kamala Harris, so be it, because honestly I think she's a political dead end. There is zero path forward with Harris at the helm. Voters have made it crystal clear that they're tired of leaders who can't lead, and Harris has proven time and time again that she's all talk and no substance. If the Democrats keep pushing her as their future, they're in for now. It's up to them to decide what's next.